Friends, welcome to the Workforce Therapy Files podcast. It's an employer solutions podcast that's really going to be a lot of great information from seasoned individuals who are in this field, who are dealing with companies, who are trying to build their business, staff their business, brand their business, and look for solutions to keep everything rolling forward. So today, this is kind of a behind-the-scenes look, which will kind of give you an idea of who these people are, why we decided to launch this podcast, and what you might be able to expect from it. So why don't we kick it off real quick? Jamie, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of give the audience an idea of what your background is?
Hi, my name is Jamie. I am the founder of Parcel, which is a team of HR consultants who have over 100 years of collective HR experience. I personally have been in human resources for over 23 years. I'm SPHR certified and focused more on fire prevention than firefighting. In my work experiences, I've provided solutions in all areas of the employee life cycle, from pre-hire to retire. I've worked with small and startups all the way to the Fortune 5 and across varied industries. I think my professional superpowers that I bring to this are words for the sticky situations and finding processes and perspectives that for those tasks that seem darn near impossible.
Definitely a superpower. Molly, jump in here. Introduce yourself and let the audience know who you are.
Hey everybody, Molley Ricketts, Incipio Workforce Solutions. We partner with organizations for recruitment and retention. So of the 25 years plus experience that I have specifically in recruiting, because I started when I was 12.
That's right.
Just for the record, fourth grade. The recruiting experience that I have comes from a very compliant industry of banking all the way through to the small business owner, third-party recruiting. So understanding the vast differences of what recruiting means for each of those industries gives me the leverage, or my superpower, as Jamie said, that I have today.
Outstanding. And let's wrap it up with Jason. Jason, who are you? What do you do? Kind of, jump in here and introduce yourself.
Thanks. This is Jason Heflin. I own a marketing agency. We focus quite heavily on workforce solutions and employer branding solutions. So one of the things that happened a few years ago was we were pulled into a workforce development project, government project, and we were thrown headfirst in and just really learned the gap there, the need that recruiting teams have. Their recruiting teams aren't trained to be marketers. They're not trained to build ads and to sell the service. They're trained to do other things. And so we really just found ourselves in a place where we could help out. And since then, we've been working with Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. And so at Crowd South, we've really leaned heavily into that, and we've loved it. We've enjoyed it quite a bit.
Outstanding. So I think if you're listening to this group talk, obviously they're qualified individuals who really have an idea based on years of experience here. The information that they're going to provide are not just nice theories and things that they've read out of articles and books. These are things that they've learned in the trenches, and I think that's part of the important insights that you're going to receive here. Jason, let me ask you this question. You guys are, you live down in Bowling Green. You ladies are here in Louisville. Why did you decide to get together for a podcast? What was kind of the inspiration behind that? What do you want to accomplish with this?
Yeah, we have partnered on projects together. We share some clients. We're working in the same space geographically, and it came up in conversation that all of us, all three of us, in our professional lives, hear some of the same challenges every week, day to day, really, and we happen to know some solutions to some of those issues, or we can at least help guide people down the path. And, we're having those conversations over and over. It's very repetitive. So we thought, let's get this out there. If people need to reach out for help, that's fine. But if not, maybe we can help people a little bit just on the front end of these projects, kind of map them out in a way that it doesn't feel so daunting, and letting them know that they're not alone. And that's that kind of that keyword therapy in the name of the podcast. We can be there to be your therapist and to help you work through your issues. So it's sort of tongue in cheek, but it is real. And for those of you listening who are in the trenches, hiring hundreds or thousands of people or building retention programs, you understand that this is not something that there is a formula for that you're given. You probably have not been trained on this specific thing. So I think a lot of people are just left to figure it out, and that's not fair. And so we felt like it was unfair, and we just wanted to share the little bit of knowledge that we have in our space.
And I think that's so needed. I mean, Jamie, as we were prepping, for both developing the concept for this podcast, but also prepping for this kind of behind the scenes look, you related to us kind of an email response that you'd received from a prospective client about, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you can hear it in the way that the words that they used in that email, the
Absolutely.
frustration, the fear, and everything. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I had reached out to someone that I knew went into a new role, and it seemed like such a really big role based on all of the things I'd read about what was happening with that company. And they called it the fight of their life. They also shared experiences of what attracted them to that role and how some of the initial promises that were provided weren't being lived up to. They were actually creating a financial detriment for their family, and starting to inspire the biggest cheerleader that you have for joining your company to want to leave themselves. And I think that that's problematic. From my perspective, you spend 70 to 80% of your awake hours at work. And anything that we can do to improve the candidate and employee experience really lifts our communities. So I'm excited to be able to provide perspective on these challenges that we see from place to place that we know people are going through.
Well, and that's what I love about the concept of you guys bringing this together, because again, from different experiences, different companies that have slightly different focuses. I mean, there's a lot of overlap there, but what you get into is the audience that we're talking to are really anywhere from the C-suite to the mid-level manager to the HR professional who's trying to get this done and is looking for answers. So some of this, Jason, to your earlier point, is a little therapeutic for the person in the middle that's got the task and is just looking for the path. Okay, but at the same time, for that director, that senior manager, that C-level executive who's saying, I don't know how to work through this in my company. So I think you're hopefully going to get a lot of good advice. Molley, you've got some really good experience in stepping into situations where people had an idea of what they thought the problem was, but actually, as you asked a couple of extra questions, there's a whole bunch of other stuff they hadn't even thought about yet. And I think a lot of individuals, unfortunately, find themselves in that because these tasks kind of get talked about in a meeting and then tossed over the wall, and you guys just handle it, make it happen. And thank goodness people like you are there to step in and say, hey, I can come up alongside you here and help you through it.
That's right, Jim. So typically when we go into an organization to talk to them about their recruiting needs, the opportunities I need 15 people tomorrow to run the line or answer the phones or do the task at hand. Well, do you need 15 people for one position, 5 positions, and why 15? Where did that number come from? Help me understand what pieces of your revenue are reflective of one hire that you have for the different divisions, as well as thinking through what your turnover is. Are you hiring 15 because you really need 7 and you've got 50% turnover? So what does that ripple effect look like, and how is that cost associated with your bottom line within the organization? And one of the greatest things, a few years back, met with an organization, and CEO looked at me and said, well, that's a soft dollar. And I said, a soft dollar? Can you spend a soft dollar? And he said, well, yeah. I said, then how is it soft? What about that is a soft dollar? And he said, well, it doesn't have a line in my P&L. And I said, well, shouldn't it? Your payroll does.
Right.
So everything that affects your payroll should have a line item in your P&L. So a lot of it takes a completely different way of thinking to understand the value of what that payroll means, because post and pray does not work anymore. Understanding that, what is the saying? Hire slow, fire fast. That doesn't work today. That transition really started to happen 5 to 7 years ago. But I think within the last 2 to 3 years, people have really seen you can't take all the time in the world to get back to these candidates, because individuals are applying. This is more for the mid-level manager and position down, typically. Those individuals are applying for up to 10 jobs at one time. Mm-hmm. And then it's a race to the game. Mm-hmm. Just like somebody needs a new privacy fence in their backyard, they're calling 3 to 5 people. And the first organization that calls them with a bid or getting an appointment scheduled with that potential client, recruiting is the same way. And getting organizations to understand how they can hire slow but fast, and responding to those individuals quickly, and different tools and technologies that you can put into place to make those things happen, to get that engagement going. It may feel fast to the candidate, but the steps in which you're going through to make a better hire are actually more effective. So we just help organizations see that in their understanding, because my problem today is not something that started yesterday. It's something that's been building over the last 6 to 12 months, typically.
Yeah, and Molly, to your point, I think, one thing we see as a marketing agency is, we try to back up and build a strategic plan. Often what we run into when we're brought into an engagement is organizations that maybe the recruiters and the talent acquisition teams have been brought in and given a challenge almost. But they have no tools or path to get there. Just, hey, we have to hire 400 people in the next 6 months, period. And then that's laid on their desk. And it's such a daunting thing to see in front of you. And of course, it's your job. So you say, yes, I'll get that done. But what really needs to happen is there need to be some pre-engagements where a strategy is built.
That's right.
To say, we're going to back up from this goal, and here are all the milestones we need to hit along the way. There's certain things that you bring to the table and Jamie bring to the table. So I'd be interested to hear, because I know from a marketing perspective, we break it down in pieces and parts, and we want to measure it, and we want to get results and test things. But from your perspective, you're talking in a different language almost, personalities, soft things. So how do you build those strategies?
Yeah.
And I know we don't have 3 hours to go through this, but just what are a couple things that you do to get that process started?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes they haven't started. They're just like, well, here's the problem. I have no idea where to go with this.
And I really look forward to spending some time together talking about this, because one of the things that, as Molly was talking about hiring 15 for 7, then you're hiring to fire.
That's right.
And I think that is...
It's like a prenup.
Yeah. And
without the financial element, right?
and you're killing culture when you do that.
You absolutely are. And it's completely shifting your focus about how you're going to treat people, from the candidate experience all the way to the onboarding experience. And I think
I don't care. I just need a body.
That's right. But then that's all
I'm
you're going to
just
get,
kidding.
right? And I think that you're going to talk in metrics and building blocks and things like that. I spend a lot of time thinking about experience and employee and candidate sentiment, and also the way that the individuals who are doing the work are feeling about their tools, their resources, their budget, their constraints, their expectations. And I think that you have to consider all of those pieces in order to make the process really good.
Well, the candidate experience is so important because of all the things that come after day one of employment. Everything bleeds into that. So when you're putting a candidate, this is from the very first ad that they think that they saw till the 5th one that actually made them apply or respond to a phone call that they got. You're talking about people that are inundated with marketing, as we all are. And if you find somebody on that one day, that one chance, that walks out of their place of employment torqued off like never before, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm applying for every job that I see. I'm going to call that recruiter that called me a month ago and I was so happy with my current employer, just in that one off chance. Everything from that experience and beyond holds with them. And if it's a great experience, you're talking about individuals that have worked for a company for 3 to 5 years and they're like, I still remember the recruiter that brought me on.
And you know what? I also really want to help people become the recruiters that still believe that hiring a lot of amazing people to do a lot of amazing things for really amazing companies is a lot of fun and very rewarding. And I look forward to being able to kind of weigh in on that, because I think what we hear a lot is just exhaustion. The email that you referenced earlier, Jim, was talking about the fight of somebody's life. Like, this isn't supposed to feel like that. Connecting people with awesome opportunities is supposed to feel pretty magical. So.
Yeah, a recruiter should feel like they're building a team that they want to work with. They're excited to work with.
Yeah, and that is the future of their company, right?
Yeah, not just checking boxes and filling seats.
Well, and again, I think that's what's going to make this podcast as we move forward so interesting, because you're going to come at it from different aspects. Okay, let's talk about some of the issues that the recruiter has to deal with, but then you've got the larger HR department in general. You've got the C-suite who needs to move and get this new initiative implemented, and are we on the right path and things like this. It'll be really interesting to see you guys offering up advice, perspective, maybe even some tips on how you might want to do this, because you guys have the advantage of not just working with your own business, but with all these other businesses that you consult, for. And so you're seeing things. You're seeing things in different environments. You're seeing different cultures. And I'm really going to be interested to hear you guys unpack the issue of, well, okay, the reason you're hiring the 17 is because you're going to lose 8 of them immediately. That might be a culture issue more than anything else. And oh, by the way, are you willing to even walk into that room and talk about culture?
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, there you go. We need theme music. We got to develop theme music. But friends, this is the kind of information that we hope to really deliver in this podcast. This is why we think this is going to be just a valuable resource for you. We hope you'll come along, and you'll be able to find us out on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, a whole bunch of other different places. We'll get picked up by Amazon Music. And each of the professionals have their own resources as well. So, for instance, Jamie may actually post it up on her own blog or her own Facebook page. So however you're connected to this group, if you're connected at all, that's where you're going to be able to find this information, or simply go out and look for it on your favorite podcast destination, whether that's, again, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you're listening. But again, we just today wanted to give you a little bit of taste of what's to come. Hopefully we piqued your interest. Hopefully this is something that you want to follow along with. And this is the Workforce Therapy Files, an Employer Solutions podcast.